2, 1. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but tonight we are going to be discussing, as we have been lately, films, live-action films that are in the Disney catalog, or should I say archive. Because I'm pretty sure that Something Wicked This Way Comes is not streaming anywhere. But that just so happens to be the movie that my fiance here has brought to the table. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you chose this movie, Tammy?
I chose this one because it fit in the category and it's one of my favorites. So I thought it would work out good.
Okay. Well, this film is directed by Jack Clayton. It was filmed in 1983, but it was based on an earlier novel that was written by Ray Bradbury. And that was a novel that was, I'm looking it up right now, it was a 1962 dark fantasy novel. And I guess it was the second book in his Greentown trilogy, which I didn't even realize that he had written other stories. And that this apparently is based on a sequel.
You didn't know Ray Bradbury?
I knew Ray Bradbury. I just didn't realize this particular novel was part of a trilogy.
Yeah, I don't think I fully was aware of that either. Good times.
Which I know some time ago when I was at Half Price Books, I ended up finding a copy of Something Wicked This Way Comes and handing it over to her, but I had no idea. See, I knew about Something Wicked This Way Comes being a novel, but I didn't realize it was part of an ensemble. So, but let's see. Who else stars in this movie? So we've got Mary Grace Canfield, Richard Davalos, Jake Dengle, Diane Ladd, Jonathan Price, Jason Robards, James Stacy, Brendan Klinger, Pam Grier in her silent treatment, Ellen Gear, Bruce M. Fisher, Jack Dudson, and the list goes on. But Tammy, did you want to bring us into first impressions then?
You want me to start it?
Yeah. If however you want to run it.
Okay. I don't have the IMDb thing up to say what it normally say.
Oh, I can do that real quick. Let's see. So IMDb says, in a small American town, a diabolical circus and its demonic proprietor prey on the townsfolk. So, going into our first impressions, who did you want to choose to go first?
I guess I will.
Okay.
I remember the first time I watched it, I was a kid, and I think it was one of those, like, a movie night on TV type of thing, because I know that the first time I watched it, it was on TV because my great grandparents didn't have, VHS or cable or anything. So, and at that time, even I don't think it was even a thing, you know. So, but it really, I've liked the movie ever since the first time I watched it. So, because I don't know, it's just something about it. Maybe the darkness or you know, the storyline about, you don't get you don't get something for nothing, basically, or it's just I like. I mean, without having all kinds of like effects and this and that and all kinds of, it still was entertaining even as a kid, and it was like wow, and, you know. So I've just never lost interest in it. I've always thought it was one of my favorites.
Okay. Um, shall we go with Jake? Was this a first time watch for you?
It definitely was. I've been vaguely aware of this movie for some time. Certainly, the title is a famous phrase, and I've read and or seen productions of Macbeth before. I think this phrase may have shown up in the Joel Cohen Macbeth. Could be remembering that wrong, but or that Scottish play, as it is properly known. I and I remember they used the phrase in the marketing for one of the Harry Potter films. I want to say it was Half Blood Prince. So I'm familiar with that, but it may have been around then that I became aware that it was a movie by that title. And I've been curious about it. I had no idea who all was in it. I mean, you got Jason Robards and Jonathan Pryce in major roles. You got some interesting folks in there. Royal Dano. Interesting stuff. I am just reading a little bit about the background, and there's a lot of really interesting. This is a really weird Disney film, but looking at the background, I realized it could have been a whole lot weirder, and that Disney tried to, well, they kind of,
They
really,
tried to have their hand in it,
yeah.
which would have entirely destroyed it.
Well, apparently they did, according to Ray Bradbury and Jack Clayton. Apparently they did destroy it. Uh, so it was very different. But I'm interested in some of this stuff, and one being that the score, which I thought was quite good by James Horner, was not the original score. They redid the score. That was originally by George Delarue, and got some other fun stuff there too. Apparently, Ray Bradbury originally wrote it as a screenplay, inspired by Singing in the Rain, and he wanted Gene Kelly to star, and Kelly wanted to, but he couldn't find the backing for it. So then Bradbury rewrote it as a novel. I'm like, that's kind of intriguing. Of course, this guy's the guy that did Fahrenheit 451. That's usually what I more think of him as, not a story that gets turned into a Disney film.
Well, I'm coming at it from seeing his Martian Chronicles miniseries.
Right. Yeah, it's a very, like I said, it's a very interesting movie. I definitely enjoyed my viewing. I definitely looked at it. One scene in particular, I'm like, this probably scarred a generation of children. I'm sure y'all know what scene we're talking about, but we'll get to it. But it's it's very interesting. It does make me wonder what the film might have looked like without studio interference. it might have actually been incredibly awesome, or it might have just been really weird. Who knows? But definitely glad I finally got to see it. And yeah, it's an interesting one. And kind of an interesting one to end our Disney month with. Yeah.
Right. So, heading is that pretty much it then for you, Jake?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Heading over to you, Brandon. Was this a first time watch for you?
Yes, this was. I'd like to say that this actually is one of the films. Really, there are a few of y'all that really got the point I was trying to push across this month in my 70s, 80s live action Disney month. And I will say Tammy hit it right on the head with the point with this. Because this film really does exemplify the live action Disney of the time period. And I am, it's one of two that I've actually really wanted to see that I just, because there are a lot of people who said, yeah, when I was young and watched this, I thought it was great. It was freaky. And I'm like, I never got to see that. This one, Watcher in the Woods, I've been wanting to see. I've still got a Blu-ray copy of Watcher in the Woods sitting upstairs once I get some time to sit down and watch it with my wife. But I was glad that I got to see this. There's a lot of, I can see where there's a lot of inspiration that further children's horror, such as Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark, took from that. There's something mysteriously terrifying about a carnival, especially a carnival at night. It can be both beautiful and sinister at the same time. It just is it's a perfect setting for a horror film. And I was glad to see that. And there was another film that I that reminded me of. There was a Stephen King film called Needful Things, I think it was, or book, depending on which one you want. And there's a lot that this reminds me of in relation to that. And it wouldn't surprise me if King didn't actually read Bradbury and get some inspiration, because he's not one to mince words. When he gets inspired, he usually will move with it. So,
Right.
So it wouldn't have surprised me.
Apparently, Stephen King did write an adaptation of this, but it was not used.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, I do think that there are some there. I mean, but I did like it. I might have missed a couple of pieces of it because I did doze off a couple of times, more out of exhaustion than anything else. But I think I caught most of it, and it was really good. And I look forward to watching it again in the future. Glad that I got it before Disney shut down their movie making and made this out of print.
Alrighty. And I guess I'm not sure exactly when I saw this first, but my grandma Grace, she ended up having this movie taped on a VHS, and it was one of her favorites. Two of her favorites were this mini series of The Phantom of the Opera with Burt Lancaster in it, and then this one, and which made it kind of curious because it wasn't the type of movie that I thought that she wouldn't entirely like, but she likes it. So, and I know it was definitely on rotation in my household, and I like the story. I do like the end product of it. I think I like even more that it had Ray Bradbury's involvement. Not sure whether later in life, learning how much Disney liked to interfere with their directors and the way that their productions were going. learning that aspect behind this film did not make me exactly a fan of Disney. But that being said, I do think it has some morals. Be careful what you wish for, kind of an attitude, and I do like returning to it from time to time. It is on my my favorites of Disney films in the back of my mind. So, that being said, I do enjoy it, and I'll hand this back over to you, Tammy.
Okay.
Did you want to bring us into the storyline or the plot?
Okay. There's a carnival in town. It's Mr. Dr.
Dark's Pandemonial
um,
Carnival.
and the boys, Jim and Will, see the train bringing the carnival, and they follow to where it's set up to get a glimpse of this carnival that's coming. Meanwhile, in town, people are feeling something is happening. And Will's father sees one of the flyers, and I think it seems familiar to him. But the boys sneak out and go check it out. And earlier in the day, they had come across the gentleman that was selling lightning rods. And
I do want to stop you there for just a moment. If you do not know who this man is, one of my favorite movies is Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and he plays Farmer Green, who loses his Pooh Bear at the tent in the Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Continue.
so Jim Nightshade buys one of the lightning rods from him. And so the boys are checking the carnival out, and
Well, I do believe that when the carnival has its first day, they are there during it, and they're peeping Tomming in on, I guess, everyone in. There are several key characters in town that I think there's the guy that sells cigars. Another guy, he's like the barber in town. Then, of course, there's the school teacher.
But your typical small town America, they kind of went out once the big stores of the 80s took over.
Yeah.
The Walmarts and stuff. So not something that you've seen since that takeover as much. But yeah, they used to be very, everything used to be very specialized. I think it's still like that in Europe, but no, not here anymore.
Yep, and I think there's a bar owner who has one leg that he lost during the war, and he evidently used to be a football player.
He's also down an arm.
He's also supposed to be the Gene Kelly lookalike.
Right.
So, but back to you, babe.
Okay. I try to remember which way it goes. I'm kind of tired, so.
Well, maybe I can help if you'll allow me.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, the story pretty much goes. It's two boys, Will and Jim Nightshade. It's narrated by, I believe, Will as he is older.
Right.
And he begins to tell about his bosom friend, Jim Nightshade, who he lives like right next door to. And Jim Nightshade, I guess his father left town, so his mother ends up taking in visitors from time to time.
Gentlemen callers.
Gentlemen callers, yes. And Will's father, he's the librarian, and he is played by Jason Robards. And he's actually relatively older. And so that seems to kind of be in play here with his age. And
apparently he has had heart issues for many years, and partly because of that, he is not the most risk taking of people.
Nope. And everybody in town has something that they apparently want to do. I guess they have dreams that they never accomplished.
Right.
And that's one thing that seems apparent with these small town folks.
But if you think about it, don't we all, in many ways, have those lost dreams, those opportunities that have come and gone that we have regrets for? If someone were to say, "Come and offer one their deepest desire," would you not be tempted?
Oh, I certainly would. Yes.
I certainly would, but I've always thought that, even with a wish, you don't know. You don't know whether that wish will entirely come true.
Or it may come true to the letter, but you didn't specify enough of what you really were after, and you never know.
I've had too many GMs when playing D&D have me do ideal wish spells for the game for me to go.
Yeah, I think about that phrase that you love so much, and some other GMs have been known to use. Are you sure?
Oh yeah, I was taught. Actually, that came directly out of the Dungeon Master's Guide back in the day.
And I noticed that Jim Nightshade seems to be more in tune with when the carnival was coming into town, because he even began to hear singing where Will did not. And some of the towns folk, specifically the barber, seemed to mention that he he smelled the perfume of women, and
Yeah.
he had not been in company of said women callers for many years.
Yeah.
So
But we learn later on that this is not the first time this carnival has been to town.
Right. Yeah.
All
And
right.
each of these do have, they do have pretty understandable, not always, I wouldn't always fully agree with their priorities, but I certainly can understand most of them. Like the barber, he wants companionship. He's lonely and he wants women, but not because he's a player. He just wants companionship. The teacher supposedly used to be beautiful and now she is not, and so she kind of pines for that. The bartender, yeah, he was injured in war. He used to be a football hero, so he pines over his past glories. Although he doesn't let it get to him as much as some of them do. It's still there. You got the other guy who's obsessed with striking it rich. He just wants wealth and what.
Well, yeah, isn't his dream that he would win the lottery?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, his dream is to become wealthy, but he expects that he will do so by winning the lottery. And then, yeah, you got Jim. He misses his father, but more to the point, like I guess he feels like he needs to grow up faster. And then, of course, Will's father deeply, deeply, deeply regrets not having been more of a father.
Well, yeah, because didn't he fall in the river, and it's Jim Nightstade's father that went in and saved him?
Yeah, Will nearly drowned when he was a kid, and Charles did nothing to help. But apparently, Jim's father, Harry, I think his name was, actually was the one that saved him. So yeah, we don't find that out till later, but that's.
Was it Will's father that looked to be like really old?
He was fairly old, yeah.
Getting a start later in life.
Yeah. Well, nothing wrong with that. But and Jason Robards is a solid actor, so he's always good to see in that role. Apparently they had a lot of people they wanted for that role and for Mr. Dark, and ultimately they had to go with somewhat more affordable people. I'd wager Robards was probably one of the larger chunks of the budget. But yeah, apparently one of the people they considered for Mr. Dark was Christopher Lee. And that's like, could you imagine Christopher Lee in that role and it still be a Disney film?
That would have been
Christopher
different.
Lee would have been excellent in that role.
Yeah, I think it would have been, but I'm still glad that Jonathan.
Price was excellent in the role. There's no question. He was excellent in the role. And he looked the part as someone you would not trust, and yet you might.
That guy was already kind of scary. Like Christopher Lee would be so over the top.
Yeah.
And he would just gnash his teeth all over it too. So
Right.
But in a good way. So
hello
everyone, by the way. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, I hear you. Good deal.
So, was this a first time watch for you, Dustin?
So I have heard of this movie intermittently throughout my life, but I did not. I don't think I thought it was real, honestly. This was definitely a first time watch. I was kind of surprised when the premise was revealed. It's like, oh yeah, evil carnival, and it's like, oh, this comes from somewhere, because I just think of that as like a horror trope for, more children aimed horror stories. And aside from Are You Afraid of the Dark reboot a handful of years ago, I don't think I'd ever really seen a haunted carnival thing besides Carnival of Souls, which feels like it didn't really count. So this was kind of wild, and I'm still confused as to like, were they demons? Were they aliens?
You know what?
Like,
The way I'm thinking about it, and seeing many different things, the closest kind of character that I could even possibly imagine it came up in Stephen King's sequel to The Shining, as the Shining Eaters or whatever the fuck they're called.
oh, like Rose and like her gang of
Yeah,
whatever the hell
the
it
way
were.
they acted was kind of similar to how these Autumn people were acted, you know. So
Okay, this wasn't a Stephen King story, was it?
no, it wasn't. It was Ray Bradbury, and I
Really?
found out that it was like always, this was originally a novel, and it was written 20 years before this movie. But I didn't realize that it was part of a trilogy, and it was the second book in that trilogy dealing with, I guess, the town of Green. So
It's also worth noting. It's also worth noting that the screenplay was written by Bradbury, which makes this a rare example of a novelist adapting their own work for the screen. Which, considering it started as a screenplay and then got turned into a novel, it makes more sense than some of the other that have come since. But still, it's kind of rare when you get a novelist actually turning their own book into a movie, and oftentimes turns out better. Again, makes you wonder what it would have been like without the studio interference. But yeah,
Well, this had studio interference. I missed a good part of the discussion, I think. Sorry, guys.
not a problem. I'm trying to find the quote here, where it actually talks about. Here we go. I know who you are. You are the Autumn people. Where do you come from? The dust. Where do you go to? The grave. Yes, we are the hungry ones, your torments. Call us like dogs in the night, and we do feed, and feed well. To stuff yourselves on other people's nightmares, and butter our plain bread with delicious pain. So you do understand a little. You are known in this town. My father knew you. Your father, the preacher, that half man? He lived on goodness, tasteless fare, funerals, bad marriages, lost loves, lonely beds. That is our diet. We suck that misery and find it sweet. We search for more always. We can smell young boys ulcerating to be men 1,000 miles off, and hear middle-aged fool like yourself groaning with midnight despairs from halfway around the world. So
good.
that's why I kind of thought like they were a little bit like shine eaters, you know. So I don't know what the heck you want to call them, but
I know what Rose Hat is called, and I can't remember it right now, and it's kind of making me mad.
Well, there's a lot of literary and movie and television tradition of demons and demonic type characters being the types that feed on misery and pain and all that stuff. So even if they're not explicitly demons, I feel like it's definitely in that ballpark. Yeah.
but yeah.
They're just called psychic vampires. No fancy name.
But we were kind of going through the various different characters before you it came on, like the townsfolk, and how the fact that the Tom Fury character, well, he sold Jim Nightshade a lightning rod, and I did mention that the actor actually played the Farmer Green in Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Same actor. So
He looked very, very familiar. It drove me nuts the whole time, but does not surprise me.
but yeah. So ultimately, I guess the two boys end up showing up at the carnival, and they had watched the barber get flooded with fillies in the show of belly dancers that he was being shown, and they were scared away from that, and then they found themselves at the carousel.
Well, first, I don't know if you said this before. They actually went to see the carnival when it came to town in the middle of the night. I think it was like 3 a.m, and it basically materializes before their eyes.
Yeah.
It was set up like out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Train just starts rolling down the tracks, and as soon as they reach the end following the train,
yeah.
it's just like set up right in front of them, like out of
Right.
nowhere.
And apparently that was a whole effects sequence that got cut because it just didn't look good. But and when they go back and see the barber, they actually go back the next day and they're actually kind of disappointed. They're like, "Is this it? It looked different last night,"
Right.
which it really did. But as they go on, they realize that, wait a minute, things are a little weird.
But there is something about it when you think about carnivals. There's something about a carnival that takes on a different life when it gets dark. This one literally, but even then, a lot of the people seem a little bit more sinister in the light. The carnival barkers, the freak show pioneers, all of them have that more sinister cast out of the light. Something almost sinister, magical, mysterious about it. Everything looks rougher around the edges during the day.
And then, of course, when you return at night, it's entirely more creepy. But they get caught while they're evidently just exploring like boys do. I mean, honestly, they're doing a little bit more curiosity killed the cat kind of exploring, but as a carnival owner, I don't see a bad thing in telling them that certain things weren't off limits, were off limits, and didn't you see the signs and stuff like that. So I kind of get that part of what he's trying to tell them, and he honestly offers them tickets to come back and see the ride later, but they end up showing up earlier than necessary and seeing things that they probably should have never seen.
Well, I mean, one of the first quote unquote deaths, so to speak, happens because of a free ticket, where the guy gets a free ticket for the Ferris wheel and ends up getting in there with a beautiful lady, and of course at the end of the ride, just the lady leaves.
Right. So townspeople are beginning to disappear, and as the boys begin to notice, they notice the barber, the cigar person, and showing up as some of the carnival employees, sort of. But they also see what happens to Tom Fury, which he gets strapped to a chair, and he is literally being tortured to be told when there's going to be a storm, because apparently he knows when there's going to be stormy weather or when lightning will strike.
Because it was in the books that they discovered that the last time the carnival was there, it ended when there was a giant storm. It kind of blew it away.
Yep. So, and the autumn, the Dust Witch is what she's called. The Dust Witch is played by Pam Grier, which Pam Grier, she was well known in the blaxploitation era, as the Fox. There's a DVD set called A Fox in the Box with all of her films. Foxy Brown, I think she was mainly known for. But in this role, she was very, very quiet and very, very pretty. So, but also very deadly looking. I mean, the first time we see her is she's in a sarcophagus-looking coffin. And they definitely do make her entrance and appearances very creepy.
Yeah, she starts off on a block of ice, it looks like.
Yeah. And when the boys make themselves known, that's when you see this green smoke arise towards them. But I think she also let them have a tarantula scare first before she did that. Because evidently she has control over spiders.
She was the original Madam Web.
Right. But yeah, ultimately, because the boys had seen too much, that ensues into what would be kind of a small chase by Mr. Dark in looking for them, and a little beknownst to the Dust Witch, though, it's thanks to Tom Fury and his sale of the lightning rod that kind of protects the boys that night. Because Will ends up heading over to Jim Nightshade's place, and that lightning rod is up on his house, and apparently they have a vision of spiders all crawling out through the room over doorknobs. What did y'all think about that?
Well, like I said, there's a scene that probably scarred a generation of children, and I bet this one probably did. I can watch it now and I go, isn't that interesting? But I can imagine if I'd seen that as a kid, I would have been like, ugh.
Tammy, did you like that scene with the spiders?
Not particularly, even though I like tarantulas, I still didn't like it. There's too many of them.
There were a lot of them.
It was
I think I read they used to.
It was kind of like
they used 200.
Kind of a regular Kingdom of the Spiders, though.
And apparently this was one of the reshoots that they did a year later with a different director. And so I guess the kids supposedly look older in this scene. I didn't really notice it, but it does make sense. Like, but
yeah, I heard something about that. But Disney needed to keep their hands out of this production. That is what they should have done.
Well, apparently this scene had a giant hand in it, literally a giant hand, and supposedly it looked really bad, so they decided to do the spider scene instead. And I did say I was talking with someone today about it, and I'm thinking I don't know because I didn't see anything about this on IMDb, But and now that I know that it was reshoots, this probably would not have been in the original hiring contract. But I wonder if when they called the kids back, now that I know it was reshoots, I'm like, I wonder when they called them back if they said, now, do y'all have any problems with spiders? Because if they didn't, they probably scarred those poor kids for life.
I can tell you, I would be, I'd be freaked out by that scene at their age. Just,
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of tarantulas.
That's probably about the age I was that I handled one of those red knee tarantulas, but 1 and 200 that's a slight difference.
I'd also be afraid I would step on one, and even if they're defanged or so on, I would be afraid of hurting it. Also, that would be the other thing. Because
well, the kid does step on one, but it's probably not really one.
They did use mechanical spiders to augment the numbers.
Well, and when he went and turned the handle, there was one that came off in his hand, so I almost wondered if that was a living one, and he accidentally squished it. So I would be probably one of those at that time, like wiping my hand off, like, ew, get that off of me.
If it makes you feel better, I don't think tarantulas really have venom the way other spiders do.
They do, but I was just about to say the red knee tarantulas are known to have a very weak venom compared to a lot of spiders. And they also are very non-aggressive. Like I said, I've handled one before. The only thing with tarantulas that would have me worried, although maybe more now than when I was a kid, is that they're very hairy, and they can launch those hairs into the air.
Oh, yeah.
It can create a cloud of hairs. It can be very irritating. And I imagine 200 of them could release a lot of hairs if they were threatened.
Yeah, I handled a regular tarantula like was in the movie, and I also handled a pink toad.
Ah.
The pink toads are smaller, and boy, are them little suckers quick.
Yeah.
Really quick, and if you drop one from just the smallest height, you can kill them because they don't have a skeleton like we're used to.
Right.
So I'm handling this little pink toad, and I got to name her. I named her Taranga. So
right.
she's flying around on my arm and everything, and I'm holding her over like a couch because I'm afraid, I don't want her to fall. It's just like, would you settle down? It's like I'm trying to keep up with her. So I was so afraid of dropping her, but when I held the other one, the regular one, my hands are very small, and all of a sudden, I don't like spiders, okay? But tarantulas, if they're walking on you, it's almost like they grab, okay? And it's not like how you normally feel a spider on, like, ooh, they actually kind of like grab. So he's in my hands, and all of a sudden he just went, his body just sunk down, and I'm like, oh, what's he doing? And they're like, oh, he likes you. He's just gonna stay there, probably go to sleep right there. I'm like, oh, okay.
And he probably didn't exactly look
ever, because I don't like spiders.
And he probably didn't exactly look like Lucas the spider.
No, he looked like the ones in the movie. It was our friend's girlfriend's spider. The spider was. And so she comes over, and this thing's sleeping in my hand, right? So she comes over, and she's like, "Oh, she found a new friend." So I put my hand down so he can crawl. she tries to come over my the thing raised up its front legs like at her. And it turned around and came back towards me, and I'm like, okay, this isn't good.
You made a friend.
Yeah, I made a friend and upset the owner.
That's
Well,
like I said in the message, though. This scene got me thinking that for next month's theme, I should have suggested arachnophobia. That would have been a good one for that. But oh
Thought
well.
about it.
Yeah.
It was her other choice if she wouldn't have chosen, I think, man's best friend.
Ah, okay. Now, there you go. You need to have a movie called Man's Best Friend that's about spiders. I'm sure some people would find that a little odd.
I think that scene would have been much more intense if they had used a bunch of Sydney funnel web spiders instead of those tarantulas.
That's one of the few mygalomorphs you do not want to use in a scene like this. Most mygalomorphs you're fine with, but Sydney funnel web, that might not be a good idea.
Well, only if you care about the actors living through it.
What's the difference?
What's that?
What's the difference?
Sydney funnel webs are mean little buggers and very, very toxic.
Oh.
Yeah.
Were those maybe an 8-legged freaks?
Well, I don't know. I don't remember. I don't think that was one of the ones.
The black and yellow stripes.
What's that?
Is that the black and yellow stripes? The funnel webs.
No. Sydney funnel webs are all black. Like and like I said, they're mygalomorphs. They're built like tarantulas. Technically, are not true spiders. There's a whole separate subgroup of spiders that includes tarantulas, funnel webs, trapdoor spiders. They are built differently. Their venom is different. Everything is different from true spiders. They're totally different creature. But this
here.
What's that?
I want to say they're bulkier.
They are definitely bulkier. Yes.
Yeah, those kids wouldn't have to fake any terror if they were in with a bunch of funnel webs. Though.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just get
Well,
close to one
8-legged
of those.
freaks
One
had
bite,
a
you're dead.
Well, the 8-legged
There may
freaks
have been
had a
one.
bunch of different spiders in it.
Well,
They were
yeah.
supposed to all be
There may have
different
been one in 8-legged freaks.
Maybe.
toxicity.
Yeah.
When I was in grad school.
That movie played fast and loose with reality, but
I sent a picture of
When I was in
one.
grad school and I studied in the frog lab, that professor's husband, he was a professor too, and he studied invertebrates in like the lab next door, and his focus was on spiders. So
okay.
like there were a lot of times I would go in there and they'd be dissecting spider brains, like nothing like big like a tarantula, but that was like their I learned a tiny bit about spiders.
Well, I mean, it's all different. I mean, I was watching this guy, Jack's Wildlife, and he let Brazilian wandering spider crawl in his face. But when it came to a funnel web, he's like, nah, I'm crazy, but I ain't that crazy. I ain't
this guy Spencer, he does My Wild Backyard. I've been watching his stuff a lot, and he does a lot of spider stuff. And he handled a Brazilian wandering spider, but he's straight up. He was like, he made sure it was chill first.
Yeah.
And he was like, and I'm not. There are some he won't mess with, and the funnel web is one of them.
Well, he regretted handling the Red Widow that one time.
Oh yeah, no, that one got him.
I'll have to look it up and see what this funnel one looks like.
I just not too long ago sent a picture of one in the group for you. He's nice and friendly up close.
Oh yeah, so friendly, so friendly.
Your friendly neighborhood funnel webs.
Yeah.
They're the basis
That's why they say Australia the deadliest continent.
They're the basis of the Spanish Inquisition spiders.
Yes, exactly. No one expects it.
Alrighty, so back
Well,
to
this thing just ended up in your boobs overnight, from what I remember looking at it.
all right, so back to the movie.
Yep.
We do have the two boys running. They have that spider the webisode, and they wake up as if from a fever dream.
Yeah.
So
Once the lightning struck because it's almost like the lightning like protected them.
Right.
The lightning rod and its whole like electrode
Right.
happening there, which woke them up from the dream. And then, of course, they end up going into town. He calls his father, Mr. Halloway, and basically tells him that they're looking for him and after him, and he has to go halfway through the phone call. And so I guess he kind of goes into town. He's accosted by, he goes up to the bar, and one of the townsfolk tells him, "Hey, this is the first time that the bar owner has left his place open and it's closed." So they go inside, start to talk about that, and then Mr. Dark walks in and begins to ask them about the whereabouts of the two boys.
Well, meanwhile, there's a parade in town. I don't remember if you mentioned that or not. Sorry.
That was
But
about
yeah. Okay, but that's he's been leading a parade, and he breaks off from the parade at this moment. But yeah,
why did he want the boys again? I don't remember. But
because they'd seen too much,
Yes.
especially with what they were doing to Tom Fury.
And they saw what's his name, the big guy, to turn back into a kid.
yeah,
Yeah, and evidently, that's right. Because the big guy that was doing that ride, that the one guy evidently didn't come out from the ride. He was turned into a kid, and evidently he was told to go do a job, which seems like it had to do with that school marm of theirs. And she mentioned him as her like nephew coming to town. And of course, as they were leaving, because they had told the school teacher that they were looking in after her because they were worried about her. And when they left, the kid then threw a stone through the window and made it seem like it was them. So they had to run from there. And when he was turned back into an adult, he told Mr. Dark at the same time that the Tom Fury incident was going on that he was having trouble with them. And he said, you know what, that's okay, just so long as they don't mess with our business from here on forward. But then, they did the stuff to Tom Fury, and they shocked. Basically, they were putting him through shock treatment.
they were trying to find like he. This is where Dark kind of tips his hand a little bit. And I don't remember, maybe someone else picked it up. I don't remember if the movie really goes into the mechanism of why the electricity and the lightning rods are dangerous to these people. Like you said before, it woke the kids up as if from a dream. But I don't know if it really goes into the explanation of how that works. But whatever the case, he wants to find out from Fury, well, who'd you sell this to? And who, he's making it clear that he
And he needs to know when
Yeah.
the next storm is.
yes, that's he wants to know, because Fury claims that he can sense the weather and he can tell what houses are going to get struck, and that's part of his sales pitch. Maybe he can, but that is part of his sales pitch, and so maybe that was why he was targeted. I don't.
He's like one of those people. He reminded me of the father from that Hansel and Gretel thing. So instead of selling brooms, he was selling lightning rods.
Yeah, I could see that a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that a little bit too. But in any case, the kids see too much, and now Dark is trying to hunt them down. And yes, he comes into town with all of his already kidnapped people disguised as carnies. And it's funny that the townspeople don't recognize them, you know. And he stops to talk to Holloway. Holloway, you know, he's kind of nonchalant about whether he knows anything about the kids. And then when he's getting a cigar, he offers one to him, and he's like no, and and then he's got the kids' faces tattooed on each of his hands.
Because that's not at all suspect.
Right?
As far as the townsfolk not recognizing people, it's probably just the Superman effect. You know, they don't recognize them because they wouldn't expect them to be there. So,
oh yeah. So he's kind of like playing it off by saying it's two different names, and that's when Dark steps closer to him. He's like, and now I know that you're lying because I already know what their names are. And what is your name, sir? My name is Holloway. And what's interesting is he squeezes the hand that has Jim Nightshade's face, and yet the blood shows up on Will's face. You know, I know you can tell that the blood is dripping onto him, but technically it's supposed to show that he's bleeding at the same time the hand is got the blood there. So, but I would have thought that maybe he would have chosen to squeeze the fist over Will's face to do that, but I guess.
didn't think about it that way. I was just thinking about the blood dripping. But yeah.
So yeah. And then of course instead of he came into town as a parade, but after that it turned into a funeral march. and the music got decidedly sadder, I think, as he walked away and stared his stare at Holloway as he went away. So, what did y'all think about the whole parade funeral procession?
Bizarre. It was. I was kind of confused as to what was going on before. It's like they're searching for us, but they're making it look like a parade, and that made perfect sense. And I remember thinking that was a pretty clever idea. Like if you were like this entire Sinister or whatever looked like carnival, that you would just be like, oh yeah, we're doing our thing. No. Well, I thought that was a pretty cool. I thought that was a great idea to like give them cover to like hunt these kids down.
Well, they kind of were doing their thing because, you know, they gave them an opportunity for further advertising, so they are killing two birds with one stone.
Exactly. That's what I appreciated about it.
Well, and even he noticed that there were some of the townspeople. I think Holloway did notice that there were like I think he noticed that the barber and the cigar person and were part of the townspeople, and he was like saying to himself, like, "What the heck is going on, boys?" And he's talking to the two kids down at the sewer. And after Dark left, he told them to meet him at the library later on that evening, and so they did. And that's when he pulls out this book where he found all the history that for thousands of years these autumn people have come to the town of Greenstown or whatnot, and always in the end ended up being destroyed by a storm, or not destroyed, but at least held at bay.
Repelled.
Yeah, repelled. And then of course they begin to hear sounds, and the doors begin to swing open and shut, and so the boys end up hiding amongst the shelves, and Holloway sits down to his table and acts like there's nothing wrong. And as he's reading something, I think that's when Dark appears, and that's when you hear that he stands up and says that saying that I said earlier. And I thought that part, that dialogue, that was cool. I thought the way they were saying stuff to each other, it was like almost like Shakespeare, except with a wicked tone, you know, because they were speaking in riddles, in a sense. So, what did y'all think about that moment? And then, of course,
I thought that whole dialogue thing was really cool too.
if I'm remembering correctly, there was some Shakespeare there, because wasn't that when they were quoting Macbeth to each other? Or at least one of them quoted Macbeth?
I think one of them quoted Macbeth.
I think it started out that way, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But ultimately, he basically took a book and acted like he was giving him his years back. Except, okay, if you tell me where the kids are, I can give you your years back, since you are old. I thought it was cool that the pages lit up whenever he tore them.
It was very like, it had a very satanic like deal making feel to it. Like, I'm not necessarily sure, other than like probably killing these people eventually, like what they were getting out of. It's like, oh yeah, you can be young again, you know, before you have to live in hell carnival forever. Like, I don't know, the logistics of those deals was kind of weird to me.
Well, as he said, they thrive on sadness and pain and what have you, and like the pain of regret is a pretty major thing. And they could grant these, I guess they could grant these small wishes so that when they take them away, the pain will be that much greater, I guess you could say.
But also with granting these, it comes with a price, you know. So, that being said, that's about when the boys pipe up, and Will says, "Father, no, don't listen to him." And I believe he throws the book at him, and I think before he goes over and tries to find them, he takes Holloway's hand and gives him a taste of death. And that's when his hand starts to wither and split, and he starts to look like older than his age that he was, and then he leaves them there. And then he goes and finds the boys. Where should I find you guys? You know, B as in boy or H as in hidden. And he grabs them from behind, fells them to the floor, and basically takes them over to the dust and tells her to take their tongues. Until they until they need to use them again. And then he sticks her on Holloway and tells her to do the same thing that he already did. Give him a taste of death so that he knows what it feels like when it comes to him. So, what do you think of the Dust Witch, guys?
Alien. Like, she looked very much like an alien, like near the end when like her like robes came off, but I don't know, she was in general just kind of a creepy character that didn't really have a whole lot of explanation. It's like, oh, is this like the fortune teller? It's like, no, it's something higher leveled, I guess.
Kind of a sorceress that doesn't speak, or at least until like I think she started to say something like in the library, but that's about it, you know,
Like a curse or something, yeah.
and she was also used as a bride of sorts for Tom Fury earlier. So I thought she was very good looking then. But
Well, she was talking when she was making Holloway's heart slow down because she kept saying slower and slower, you know.
yeah, but it was almost more like a whisper than anything else to me. Like I don't know, a raspiness, you know. So, but ultimately, he I guess he drags the boys to the carnival, and Holloway, he finds himself to the carnival. Oh, earlier, I guess Jim Nightshade's mother was given a ticket to come evidently later that night because evidently they told her she was going to meet her husband. And evidently she believed them because she was there at the entrance, and Holloway was took the tickets and told her to go home, and she looked so forlorn to it kind of felt bad for her, but he basically told her whoever was going to show up was never going to be her husband. But then he proceeded to go into the House of Mirrors, which I think this is like the best part, or one of the best parts, because it shows Holloway all the different like windows of opportunity that Dark had taken from the town, the different situations. It's almost kind of like a rehash of what already went on, so that he knew like why, and then to show him his greatest regret was his kid drowning, and I guess he wanted him to drown in his regret too, over and over and over. But I don't think Dark thought that love would will out. Oftentimes, they often say love cures all things, and I guess that at the end of everything, Will shouted that he loved him over all the negativity that Dark was trying to tell him, and that's when he fisticuffed the mirror and dragged him forward. And as he dragged him forward, I think that's about when the storm was beginning to brew, wasn't it?
Well, a common, yeah, you know, was, but this is like a common theme in sort of good versus evil movies
Oh yeah.
is that evil will very often underestimate the power of love and affection and what have you.
Well, this the power of love ended up taking Tom Fury's character and helping him escape.
Right.
And then he threw his one of his lightning rods straight at the dust witch, and then she like totally exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Dark felt that wherever he was. But it's at this moment that it sort of reminds me of the storm of the century.
Power of love and friendship wins again.
Right.
Because in Storm of the Century, the dude, Andre Lenoge, was looking for an apprentice. Well, so was Mr. Dark. And
Yeah.
this has to do with a storm.
I don't know if he necessarily came in looking for an apprentice. That seems unclear to me. But he did point out Nightshade is such a perfect name. Dark and Nightshade. Nightshade and Dark. And I'm like, yeah, you got a point there.
Yeah, of course, the big difference would be how it ended. Storm of the Century had a very interesting end. One of these days, we'll have to do a theme on a month where everybody has a lot more time on their hands, called mini-series month. And then because some of those like Storm of the Century and stuff, or Dr. Horrible sing-along blog, or some of these, they would definitely be fun to cover, but they are definitely
Dr. Horrible's about the length of a movie.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
have seen so
like
many
Storm of the
used
Century.
copies of that on DVD. Like, what is that?
it's great.
Yes.
I haven't myself. I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard things.
It came out during the time where they had the writer's strike.
Right.
All these people didn't have much to do. So what was it? Who was Neil Patrick Harris, wasn't
Right.
it?
Yeah,
Came up with this.
Yeah.
It's like a thing called Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, and he's like a mad scientist supervillain.
Would-be supervillain.
Trying to join the League of Supervillains and take down the righteous Captain Hammer.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, they have the same love interest.
It looked a lot older than that, like a 2013 kind of thing.
That's about right, I think.
There's 2 or 3 copies of it at the Half Price Books here in Milwaukee.
Ah.
It's a fun one.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what happens is Jim Nightshade was about to be taken on Carousel, which we find out the Carousel actually can either turn someone's age all the way forward, or it can turn someone's age all the way back.
Mm-hmm. It's essentially a time turner.
Basically. And what happens is they get up on the two, Mr. Dark and Nightshade, end up getting onto the platform, but I do believe it's Mr. Halloway that grabs Jim off, and the lightning strikes the panel of the controls for the carousel and begins to spin Mr. Dark all the way forward. And that's a great I actually think for a Disney movie, that's a great special effects scene. I actually think
that effect is right there with some of the stuff like that Indiana, not quite as good as the Indiana Jones one, but that's what it reminded me of.
Apparently Stan Winston was involved in that scene, and apparently the original effect was a whole lot more adult skewing, And Disney felt the need to tone it down. Yeah.
That is
Personally,
Disney.
I would have loved to have seen what this movie would have been like you said, Brandon, earlier, um, without the studio involvement, just to see how scary it would have gone.
Shoot. The fact it was made even in the first place with Disney's supervision is an amazing thought. I mean,
Right.
if you fast forwarded it even into the 90s, this would never have been made for Disney. It would be like, nah, too dark. Moving on something.
Yeah, right.
Although they did remake Haunted Mansion.
That's not. Yeah, that's a different. Yeah.
But in any case, and then of course, it seems like the three run and skip all the way through town and to home. And it seems like Mr. Holloway is light of heart, sort of. It's like the whole experience has made him young again.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the end of the day, what did y'all think about the production overall? Let's start with you, Brandon.
I thought it was pretty good. Like you'd said, that scene at the end was very well done. I thought the costume design was very well done. The various sets, the carnival was suitably creepy. It was a well done film overall. I thought it was, especially for I think it was what year was this?
82.
I thought, no, 83 it says here, but oh well.
Yeah.
Either way, 82 or 83, it's still pretty impressive for the time, space, what it was, especially since a lot of the Disney movies at the time kind of almost had TV movie quality to them. So I thought this is very high quality for that, and for the time. What they did, what budget they had, they used it very well.
Okay. What about you, Tammy? What did you think about the production overall?
I thought it was pretty decent because you didn't need a lot of special effects to make it creepy and scary, and the whole thing about making the carousel go backwards that was really cool, and showing the progression of him going from a man to a child. I thought that was one of the really good effects in the production area. Of course, we already hit on it about all the spiders. That was definitely something that production had a hand in, you might say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much it then?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think they did a good job. I mean, it's just the scenery and everything was really cool, and the few things that required an effect of some sort, I think they did great on without overdoing it.
Okay. What about you, Dustin?
Overall, I think everything looked pretty good, although there were a lot of really kind of cheap feeling moments. Like I could tell a lot of the spiders were fake, or at the very least, they didn't look alive. A lot of the lightning effects and stuff, that stuff was fine though. And so I like the dissolves when the teacher is getting young again. Those worked pretty good, I think, too, even though they were sort of rough in a hard to describe way. I mean, overall, I think I'd give the production like a B. Because I mean, it was fine. It didn't like blow my mind or anything crazy. Although, when Dark does get sucked into the carousel at the end and like hyper accelerates to being old, that looked pretty great. So I'll give them some extra points for that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you?
Yeah.
What did you think?
I pretty much agree with what Dustin said. I wouldn't say this was earth shattering by any means, but for the time, it was quite solid. And uh, it's now that I'm more aware of the production history. If I ever see this again, I'll have to pay more attention to the reshot scenes. But so supposedly there is a little bit of jarringness if you're watching for it, but for a first time watch, I didn't notice it that badly, and I would say the production was pretty decent.
Okay. As far as production goes, I thought this was, like you said, Jake, pretty solid film. It was, for its time, darker than it was probably supposed to be, and that might be because originally it was supposed to be darker. But I do feel like Disney was not trying to scare their kid audience, so they heavily tried to control the situation because of what they thought was scary for children.
Hey, it was nowhere near as kid friendly as Midnight Madness was.
But definitely not as nightmarish as maybe Return to Oz. But that being said, I did enjoy the production. I did enjoy the different storylines like Tom Fury. I would have loved to have gone more, like I wouldn't have minded if they would have returned to this and done like a prequel or a sequel to it, so that maybe we could learn a little bit more what the Autumn People are, in a sense. But
it might be coming.
Who knows? All I know is that the Autumn People were very cryptic. I enjoyed the storyline, and for the most part, the cast was pretty good. And I do enjoy returning to watching this from time to time. I do not get sick of it. Let's put it that way. So, other than that, I do believe the person behind the music was Peter Falk, I think, if I remember correctly.
That what?
I believe the guy who conducted the music for this was Peter Falk.
Nope, it was. There were two different people. It's like I mentioned earlier. The James Horner is the credited composer, and supposedly it's his music you hear.
That's right.
But there was another one who did the music first, and that was who was that? I don't remember, but I think a tiny bit of that. Georges Delerue. But apparently that was deemed too dark and they got rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember the music as well in this one as others, but I mean, I think it was suitable.
I liked it, and Horner is an excellent was an excellent composer, and I thought this was a solid. I still, once again, I wonder what it would have been like with the original score, but
yeah, and Horner was known for being on the music department of the Titanic and Avatar later on. So,
among other things, yeah.
And
I still say he got robbed of his swan song. He did the music for the 33, which I think ended up being his final composing score. And it's an awesome score. And he died in a plane crash before the movie came out. And no Oscar nod for that one. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. I think it was a plane crash. He died in a crash. I think it was a plane crash. What
Okay.
was it? It was...
Well,
Yeah.
I think we're on to favorite character or characters and or favorite scenes.
He also did the music for Braveheart and A Beautiful Mind, among other things. Yeah.
Very good movies.
Oh, yeah.
So Tammy, favorite character or characters and or favorite scene?
My favorite character is Mr. Dark.
Mm-hmm.
I just like him. I have two basically favorite scenes. They're both the carousel. I like it the first time you see it where the one guy goes back as a turns into a kid, and at the end, when Mr. Dark, meets his end. But yeah,
Okay.
Mr. Dark's my favorite character. He was my favorite character when I was a kid, and I watched it the first time.
Okay. What about you, Dustin?
Well, I don't want to just say Mr. Dark too, even though he's like the most interesting thing in this movie by kind of a lot. It was kind of upsetting how much of his dialogue was like, "The boys, we need the young boys. Bring me your boys." It's like, so that kind of DQ'd him from being fun because it was like inconvenient dialogue, I guess. I think the dad was actually kind of a fun character that I enjoyed because he has to basically just he has to save the kids like through his own doubts and like fears, and he's having everything in his own mind used against him, and he's able to overcome it in the end, and I appreciated that.
Okay.
And I don't think like his son died because one of the kids was his son.
Yes.
Like, remember he told that story? It's like, oh, somebody else had to save you, and I couldn't save you. So at the end there, when he's able to, he has that vision of when he couldn't save the son the first time, and then he's able to do it this time. That was pretty cool. I thought so. I think I will indeed give it to him.
Okay. All right. Heading over to you, Brandon. Favorite character or characters and our favorite scene?
Well, I mean, of course, the main villain is a cool character to have. Though I did like the father of the main kid. He reminds me a lot of some different types of characters, but he held it off pretty cool. I like the scene where the teacher is becoming young again, but then she discovers that like her eyesight is missing or something like that. I thought that was pretty freaky.
Okay. Is that pretty much it?
Yeah.
Okay. Heading over to you, Jake. Favorite character or characters and our favorite scene?
Well, I'm going to say first, I got to agree. The idea of becoming beautiful again, but losing your eyesight at the same time, that was kind of cool. Sad and it would suck, but it's a cool concept. I do have to say, yes, by far Dark is the more interesting character. I do think Charles Halloway is probably my favorite. But if only to say something different. Although this is true as well. I also really did enjoy Tom Fury. He didn't have a large role. And part of the issue is that Dark and Holloway and the two kids are really the only characters who are given a whole lot of depth or dimension. But I think Fury gives a little more than some, and he was definitely entertaining. So I'll mention him as an honorable mention, I suppose. As far as favorite scenes, I think I'm going to say possibly the scene in the library where Holloway and Dark are doing their verbal sparring. I enjoyed that as a person who works in a library. I did enjoy that literary moment of good versus evil. And just some of the little turns that we've already mentioned some. The one where the woman becomes beautiful and loses her sight. The whole idea of him leading the parade as a smokescreen to find the boys. There were some good little clever moments scattered throughout that I appreciated. But I guess if I had to pick one, I'd pick the scene in the library.
Okay. Is that pretty much it then?
Right. I guess I could do a shout out to the spider scene as one of the more memorable ones.
Alrighty. Well, I myself, I would have to say Tom Fury is one of my favorite characters in here, because he definitely does a charge of the Light Brigade at the Dust Witch. As far as characters, though, I do like Mr. Dark, and I also do like Charles Holloway as well, specifically because he's able to face his fears, So,
and actually, Fury definitely gives new meaning to the phrase "charge of the Light Brigade," doesn't he?
yeah, definitely for sure. And I do have to see my favorite scenes. Okay, definitely the spider webisode. I definitely like the whole House of Mirrors thing. It's like when I was reading R.L. Stein's Welcome to Horrorland, and they were in the House of Mirrors and whatnot in the novel. I've always liked Houses of Mirrors. They're often fascinating and creepy and a little bit like Kids R Us with the funny mirrors, but
I bet that took some inspiration from this, since that was almost definitely written way later.
So
I also wonder if the idea of what was the mirror? I'm drawing a blank, but what was the mirror in Harry Potter? But the idea here of a mirror that basically shows you what you desire. I wonder if J.K. Rowling borrowed that concept for that mirror.
it's a possibility too.
Yeah.
Everybody borrows off of everybody else, so it's hard to discern exactly where people borrow from. And honestly, each of them are a little bit different to me. And I often find horror movies that involve mirrors are interesting. So that being said, and I really do think that the ending is scene with his age progression was really fucking awesome. So there were definitely a few scenes that I will always remember from this movie. So no matter how much involvement Disney had, what's left is definitely a film that is not a bad one. So on that note, did anyone else have anything else to add? Alrighty.
Well, I just wanted to point out, like, this did feel very similar to the 2019 "Are You Afraid of the Dark's" like first like thing, down to the guy at the creepy carnival with the top hat. So when we're done here, I think I'm gonna actually put that in and try to see how similar it is, because I haven't seen this for a while, and I'm almost wondering if the new "Are You Afraid of the Dark" kind of ripped this off to a degree. So.
Well, on that note, did you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, right. Well, I'm the Crypto Horrors here on YouTube. I collect horror movie stuff around town, or at least I did before tragedy destroyed me. But we're trying to come back. So I would do pickup videos of just the cool stuff I would find, and I was trying to get a little bit more variety in there. But go sub to my channel, The Crypto Horrors. There will be new stuff eventually, I promise. I've been saving these unboxings of Shout Factory titles for almost a year at this point, and I really need to get those boxes out of here. So, so go follow me there. And Don Cryptaxis. Oh, well, Dur Cryptaxis is my handle. I messed up the new screen name that I was forced to type into Streamlab here. So follow me on Twitter/X at Dur Cryptaxis, where I'm pretty active, and you can talk to me about horror movie anything, pretty much whenever. So, yeah. Oh, and I do have an Instagram, The Crypto Horrors, that I was a little better at posting on, but I've kind of lapsed on there too, since real world problems got in the way. So, at any rate, yeah, go follow me across all those places, and yeah, let's have some fun.
Alrighty. Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I go on this channel and another one with David and talk about movies and listen to everybody else's ideas and opinions and check out a lot of times movies I probably would never have seen before. And now that it's summertime, even though the summer's winding down, I take my car out to the car shows.
Alrighty. Is that pretty much it?
Yes.
Alrighty. Heading over to Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right, I'm Kotobukijake. I am the sometime co-host of the YouTube channel SeptumSin vs. World. Also, just generally movie and television fan collector, media fan collector here in Central Virginia. When I'm not working, which takes up quite a bit of my time, I'm always trying to figure out how to make the other hours of the day stretch for all the things I do, because I've done a lot of traveling about lately, been trying to get outside a whole lot and find lots of cool stuff, including spiders, but also other other things. But also, make time to enjoy media. I finally finished a long-term goal as an English. I said I was a bad English major because I never read The Lord of the Rings, and I finally finished it yesterday. So that's good. And actually, it's kind of funny. Earlier, we referenced Christopher Lee, and I finished the book, with the character that he came from. But he had a very different ending in the book. But at any rate, I do take some time to join these fine folks each week to talk movies, and been enjoying this this month's topic. It's been a rather interesting, not as much a tour down memory lane as I think Brandon intended, because the one I kicked it off with was the only one I'd ever seen before. But still, I get to visit many people's memories, I guess you could say. And it's been kind of interesting. So, yeah, leave it at that for now.
Okay. Heading over to Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I'm SeptumSin, a SeptumSin versus the world. We love our physical media. Here I'm really working on reorganizing the collection, which has kind of slowed things, but we're prepping also for the Versus Awards upcoming. So, you know, right now I'm in the process of gathering presenters. I've already got the presenters there. They're just turning in their stuff. Then I'm editing the stuff as they turn it in. So I'm hoping to get that done by the end of this month. And then Jake and I will start filming with a couple other people that I'm tapping out to try and do some skits and stuff for the show throughout September, which hopefully we'll be able to get the awards show up and running by the end of the month. Our anime anti-climax discussion maybe this Wednesday or the next Wednesday. It just depends on if one of our number feels like a week enough to be able to complete the series. And then
Next Wednesday would be ideal.
next Wednesday would be good.
It'd be good with me.
Well, that will be Golden Time, which is
Yeah.
a kind of a romantic comedy type
Yeah.
series.
Yeah. About a stalker and a milquetoast who fall for each other in college.
But you know, I can say I'm kind of blessed to see that it is not a typical high school anime. So, with that being said, that's all I've got. And I guess, and this is of course the end of the month I put out the Disney. What was it? Disney of our youth.
I believe so.
So you know, once Dave's done, and you can come back around to me, I'll tell us what we're doing next month because I've got that all down.
Alrighty. Well, my name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey we've been having. Hopefully you have enjoyed our youth days as we end the month and come into another more glorious month. So, but I do moonlight on a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we go on every Sunday and talk about various films from time to time with a different group, which we just got done this last week doing the Never Ending Story 2, the second story. So if you get a chance, check out that podcast episode. And I do believe that we are going to do something called Beneath the Veil, or Beneath the Black Veil, I believe it's called. 2019 movie. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm looking forward to it this next Sunday. So stick around for that. But I do some video pickups and some video reviews from time to time. And I do some gameplay from time to time. So if you want to check out the Delusions of Grandeur channel, please do. Like, share, and subscribe. I'm handing this back over to Brandon to see what's up next.
So Tammy has been our well, I guess our person to choose the theme for next month. And I guess the best way, because she had said animals and horror movies was the theme. So the best description I keep thinking of in my mind is when animals attack. Reminds me of those videos that you see.
Days of the Animals. How's that?
So it's basically about any animals in horror films. So this is a five. So this is.
I'm just excited because that's like my thing. Sorry.
So this is this movie month ends. I'm just going to start, as always, start with the last and then go to the next week. We're going to be ending with the film Monkey Shines, which interesting horror film. Really, that was a really intense one I haven't seen in a while. Then Food of the Gods, a one that I've actually watched one I've actually got on a disc with one we covered earlier on called Frogs. So it's kind of interesting to have both of those covered on the same Shout Factory.
Yeah, the H.G. Wells story from the 70s. Yeah, that's gonna be fun to talk about. So I have that Frogs disc too. So
then Willard, which I'm hoping to eventually get to Ben once we finish Willard one of these days. But that's going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Then Black Sheep, which not the Chris Farley one.
The one with sheep.
just a quick clarification: we're talking about the original 70s Willard, right? Not the 2003.
Correct, the 70s one. Yeah.
Correct.
I think they're both fine. Just making sure.
And then next week, Tammy is going to lead us off again with Man's Best Friend. Actually, I think that's the only one on this list. Well, no, I haven't seen Willard either, but Man's Best Friend. So one of the two that I have not seen on this list.
All right. One of the
All
four
right.
I have not seen.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you have enjoyed our discussion on Something Wicked This Way Comes.
All right.
I'm actually kind of hoping that maybe Disney comes back to the world of Ray Bradbury's Greenstown Tales. But let us know down in the comments what you thought of the film, what you thought of our discussion, and we'll see you next time here on Inside Movies Galore. So everyone say,
Oh,
oh.
something furry this way comes.
Yes.
Night all.
Night all.
Night.